what in the world am I thinking being slightly optimistic? Well, there's two parts to it. One is the establishment being defeated. We got to come back to that because that's so important.
Okay.
But on Trump, the new brake in the car, and this is me out on a limb, okay, is right-wing populists.
Cenk Uygur was a guest on Breaking Points with Krystal Ball to have a discussion, a debate, a conversation about Donald Trump's upcoming term, and Cenk Uygur having some optimism about that. Now, is this just part of Cenk Uygur's right-wing, rightward turn that so many people believe that he is making, or is Cenk Uygur really onto something here? We're going to take a look at these clips from Breaking Points with Krystal Ball and Cenk Uygur, and I'm going to share my thoughts about this as well. Let's check it out together.
So, okay, I can see you're grimacing. Okay.
Listen, I am, the show I do, right? Mm-hmm. And I love soccer. Mm-hmm. And, but I am also very skeptical that movement has significant sway or influence with Trump. But go ahead, make your case.
Okay, so I think that's wrong. So, number one, this is a different MAGA base than in 2016. The 2016 MAGA base was Trump is demigod. Whatever Trump says is by definition brought down to us from the heavens and will never be, challenged. So I had no interest in that base, right? And it was filled with.
I think Cenk Uygur is wrong here. I don't think the base has changed. They all think that Donald Trump is a god, and I've seen no evidence that there's been any change with the base.
With old school Republicans, some establishment guys, but not that many, but still they were hanging in there. Then they had the religious guys who were like, yeah, let's go kill everyone in the Middle East so Jesus can come back and stuff.
Like Mike Huckabee.
Yeah, but those guys have lost a lot of power within that base. So now within the right-wing base.
Pete Hegseth, sorry, I'll let you finish, but Pete Hegseth, Mike Huckabee, like these people have been put in, Mike Waltz.
But Krystal, Huckabee is Team Miriam, right? So she's the one.
He's Team End Times.
Okay, yeah, I know. So Miriam Adelson got Marco Rubio, Stefanik, Huckabee, and Walz in. Yeah. Those are all neocons, war hawks.
Hegseth, too.
Yeah, and Hegseth would kill all the Muslims. I mean, I'm not unclear about that. Yeah. And I know that in a lot of ways, I'm in the crosshairs, right? But don't discount the bros, okay? So the bros have brought in a huge new part of his base. And don't discount the moderates that are so sick of the Democratic Party that they flipped over moderates independents to Trump. And they're not looking to deport every human being in America that isn't, evangelical Christian. They're not looking, the bros don't even agree on abortion with the Republican Party, right? So like when you talk about Joe Rogan and Portnoy and all those guys, we have our disagreements with them, no question, right? Yeah. But those guys are breaking the car. If let's say they do what one of Trump's potential picks was threatening to do, which is deport and denaturalize and arrest Mehdi Hasan. Right. That's a specific threat that one of the potential appointees had, right?
Who said that?
I think Mike Davis.
Okay.
So he was being considered for attorney general. And so, by the way, good news, he didn't pick him. But Kash Patel says things like that. Hegseth says things like that. I think if they go to do that, and this is where people you got me on tape, you'll say, Cenk was so naive. That's when I think the Rogans of the world will come out and go, what are you doing? Really? I thought we were against cancel culture. I thought we were for freedom. You don't agree with Mehdi Hasan's position on Israel, so we're going to denaturalize him, a thing that doesn't even exist? No, I think they're going to say no, okay? And here's the absolute litmus test.
Okay.
On Israel, so Team Israel, Team Miriam will drive him towards war. Today, Donald Trump said that he's going in that direction.
Yeah.
He said that there's going to be hell to pay for the Palestinians and for the entire Middle East if the hostages aren't returned. I don't know what more hell they could live in, right?
Exactly.
But that's Trump saying, I will murder anyone on behalf of Israel, okay? And I will start any war on behalf of Israel.
I think Cenk Uygur is giving way too much credit to Joe Rogan for being anything more than a useful idiot. Joe Rogan and the other people like him. If they start pushing back on Trump's policies, then, Trump might not say this, but his surrogates, the Fox News people, Sean Hannity and the like, are going to say, hey, thanks for helping to get Donald Trump elected. Now just go back to being a podcaster. We don't really care what you have to say about abortion or wars in the Middle East or whatever. And if Cenk's going to get into the possibility of Donald Trump starting a new massive war in the Middle East, all the podcasters and everything can push back on that. And the defense contractors who really are running things are going to say, hey, we're going to make billions or even trillions of dollars. We don't care what Joe Rogan has to say. And Donald Trump doesn't have to get reelected. I mean, just assuming that, you know, he doesn't try to stay in there past his term and we just have a normal thing where this is his second term and that's done. He doesn't have to get reelected. So he doesn't need Joe Rogan or any of the bros anymore. They served their purpose. They were the useful idiots that helped to get him elected.
So am I right or am I wrong? We might find out instantly, because for the moment being, they're saying, the right-wing populists, oh, no, Trump would never do a war in the Middle East. No way. But he's a tough guy and he's going to threaten them and he's going to get the hostages back. But what I'm trying to explain to them is, and I had this conversation with Rudy Giuliani at the RNC, brother, when you say, oh, he's threatening them, so that's good negotiation. But what if somebody calls his bluff? And in the case of the Palestinians, they don't have a choice, because what Trump is saying is, in order to get the hostages back, Israel wants to ethnically cleanse and take half of Gaza. No Palestinian will ever agree to that, right? So Trump is threatening a giant war in the Middle East. If he does it, we're going to find out if I'm right or wrong. Because at that point, I think the right-wing populists and the bros go, no, brother, I didn't elect you to be a worse neocon than Biden.
Fair enough, and we'll see. But I'll tell you why I'm very skeptical. Because we already knew Trump's record from his first term. Like, he was not anti-war. And he was extremely hawkish towards Iran.
But his base is anti-war.
He was very, pro-Israel. And so this was already out there, right? And yet you still had people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard who were claiming he was anti-war, even though they had said, both of them, totally contradictory things previously. And also claiming that he's anti-censorship and pro-free speech. I mean, to me, that's just utterly preposterous. This is someone who wants to tighten the libel laws, who wants to criminalize flag burning. The Republican Party has launched a wave of bills across the country to crack down protests, et cetera.
Has talked more than once about how he thinks that NBC should lose their license because they make fun of him on Saturday Night Live.
And so even in spite of all of that, they still continue to hold him out as some, beacon of free speech and beacon of anti-war dovishness. And so when I see that, and I see there's already been this, ability to erase all of the things that he's done in the past and pretend he is something that he's not, it's hard for me to imagine that dynamic changing. But we can put a pin in that, because we are going to see, soon enough what the reaction is going to be. Because I do want to get to this piece about the establishment. Because the other part that I have a question about here is you say the establishment has been defeated. And I should say, even in the Democratic Party, I think they have been dealt a blow. I think you see that in MSNBC's cratering ratings. I think that creates an opportunity, a possibility. But I don't think they've been defeated. I think it's very possible we end up with Pete and Gavin, next time around in the Democratic primary. These people are very resilient. I think you have a lot of, affluent liberals who will think that they could be the answer to the problems, et cetera. They still have a lot of money power. But on the Republican side, too, for me, the ultimate, final boss establishment is the billionaires who rig the rules for their own benefit. And the billionaires have basically never been more blatantly in control than right now. Elon Musk is a perfect example of this, but we can actually put this next element up on the screen, guys. Trump has the wealthiest cabinet in history. I think there are 6 billionaires so far that he's picked to be part of his administration. And so, to me, again, this is like the ultimate establishment, and they are fully in control of what's going to happen in the Trump administration.
Okay, one more, going back to Trump's problems and then this.
Yeah, okay.
So I agree with you on all that. He's been hypocritical on every one of those issues, censorship. And he said about in his first term, I don't want poor people in my cabinet.
That's right.
He said, I like rich people.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So he's been trying to get into that elite club his whole life. So the idea that he's against the elites is kind of funny. He is, but only because he's jealous.
He's against cultural elites. Mm-hmm. Hollywood, academia.
No,
he's not against the rich.
True. That's not even true. He'd love to be in Hollywood.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that's
he
how
started a fake university, right?
Yeah.
So, was he perceived as against the establishment? Yes, right?
Yeah.
So that's when Is the establishment annihilated? No, of course not. Are they going to make a comeback? Of course. The empire is going to strike back in 2028.
Yeah.
But the empire struck back so many times. It struck back in 2016, 2020, 2024. And so maybe 2028, is, to extend this needless analogy, is the return of the Jedi, right? And so I'm not under any illusion that the establishment is gone, right? But was Kamala Harris the more establishment candidate? Yes, of course she was.
Sure.
Right? And so did she lose? Yes. And as I explained in another tweet in that thread, it's not just that Kamala Harris lost. Some Hillary Clinton lost, right? Joe Biden nearly lost. So it's not that. It's that mainstream media, which is the main weapon of the establishment, is now greatly reduced in its influence. Before, we could not get past them in a Democratic primary. Bernie almost had it in 16, but certainly in 2020 when he won the first 3 states, and mainstream media defeated him with their lies and propaganda, right? Oh, he's going to execute people in Central Park, he's a Nazi, et cetera. So the mainstream media guys are the worst liars in the world. They lie way worse than even right-wing media.
I don't know about
that. Okay, we can have that discussion. I think you cannot find 2 bigger liars in America than Joe Scarborough and Whoopi Goldberg.
I mean, but I hear you. But I also have been kind of blackpilled on a lot of independent media, because that tenant media situation where, Tim Pool and whoever else were taking random sketchy money to put out whatever propaganda they were told to put out. I just, I don't see what has grown up on the right in the independent media space as actually being better than the mainstream press.
I totally disagree with you. I'll tell you why.
While I feel like what I agree with you on is there is a possibility that exists now that didn't before. And so I feel I guess what I relate to in your tweet is I would say I feel energized because there is a possibility that wasn't there, that is there now. I think the most likely outcome is that things continue to get worse. That's why I don't feel like optimistic, because what I see over the next 4 years is you're probably going to have, a lot of cruelty towards immigrants. You're likely to have, another inflationary spiral if he does, half of the tariffs he's talking about. You could very easily have more chaos in the Middle East. We're already seeing it. More brutality in the Middle East. That's almost certainly going to happen. You could have some giant crypto bubble as possible, avian flu. There's all kinds of things that I think could be horrible and brutal over the next 4 years. And I can't look at that. I would love to feel optimistic that, there's going to be a light at the end of the rainbow. And like I said, I do feel energized, but optimistic is just not, I would love to be there, but I'm not.
So I think Krystal Ball is much closer to being correct here than what I think Cenk Uygur is. I do think Cenk Uygur is being naive. And this idea that I know he's saying that the establishment isn't completely destroyed, but the establishment still has plenty of power. Donald Trump is wanting to have Marco Rubio be part of his cabinet, and Marco Rubio is about as establishment as it gets. Yes, Donald Trump wants to have all these Fox News dum-dums in there who aren't establishment. That's true. But he's still going to have establishment figures in there. And there are certain aspects, I believe, that Trump cares about, mainly him just looting money. And there are other aspects that I don't think he cares about. The Supreme Court, for example, the people that he appointed to the Supreme Court were just names that the Heritage Foundation gave to him. So it wasn't like he took somebody from, he didn't take Judge Jeanine from Fox News and try to make her a Supreme Court justice. He just took the list that the Heritage Foundation gave him and picked from that. So there's going to be a lot of areas where the establishment, in terms of his cabinet and his administration, will have power. And then as far as the media, yes, certain media figures who are establishment have been hurt, like Morning Joe, but they're not going anywhere. There'll be some establishment person to replace Morning Joe if he gets fired or his show gets canceled. And Cenk doesn't even address all the establishment people in the Democratic Party. We're not going to all of a sudden have populist candidates in 2028. It's going to be Gavin Newsom and people like that who will be in the primary for the Democratic Party in 2028. They're not going to let populist people in there. So I definitely think Cenk is being very naive. And in terms of the base, that he thinks the bros are going to come in and have all this influence, they aren't. And this idea that they're anti-war, yeah, they're against the war in Ukraine because they sympathize with Putin and Russia for whatever reason, which is bizarre. But they still support the wars in the Middle East. The bros aren't going to say, yeah, let's stop giving money to Israel. And even if they say that, the Trump administration is going to say, no, we want to give more money to Israel. We want to continue increasing the Pentagon's budget. So the bros are going to have no influence at all. Like I said, they were the useful idiots to help Donald Trump get elected. Thank you very much. The Trump administration says to helping us to do so. Now go away and do your little shows or whatever. We don't need you anymore. That's what Trump is going to say. And Trump surrogates are going to say, in my opinion. But if you want to watch this entire conversation between Krystal Ball and Cenk Uygur, it is on the Breaking Points channel. It's about an hour long. I might do another video to cover some of the other aspects of this because I think it's a really interesting conversation. But let me know what you think here. Do you side with Krystal Ball or do you side with Cenk Uygur? Do you think Cenk Uygur, as I believe, and Krystal Ball seems to believe, is being naive about his optimism? Do you think Joe Rogan and these types are really going to have any influence in his administration? I don't think they will. I think Trump will be happy with them as long as they're agreeing with him. And then if they aren't agreeing with him, then he'll probably throw them under the bus like he does with everybody else. But let me know in the comments what you think about all this, and make sure to give me a subscribe so the channel can keep growing. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next one.